breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
A warmer from the low. Welcome to lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. We've got an excellent podcast for you. I'm going to be joined here in a few minutes by Chris Cichon. He does great work over at WBAL in Baltimore. We're going to be previewing what we're all going to be getting in terms of these divisional playoff round matchups. We're also going to be chatting with him about what we all saw in the wild card round, what he's making out of some of the totals, the teams that he thinks can go the furthest with regards to postseason, and what he makes out of the Dodgers versus Phillies matchup, as I do think that might be a World Series preview, and I think that that's effectively a preview of a team that is going to be going to the World Series. I think that Chris is in the same boat there, so we're going to be chatting about that. And then in segment number 2, we're just going to do a 2-segment podcast because there's no recap to be had. I'm going to get you guys picks and analysis for all 4 of these playoff games for Saturday as we touch them all. If you do have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways to be able to fire those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, Larsium, naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, everything is powered by EdgeBoost. Over at EdgeBoost, they make sure that 100% of your gambling transactions do get approved. You get cash back rewards as you utilize EdgeBoost. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, put in that promo code of Greg, G-R-E-G. That'll get you a dollar for dollar match on your first deposit up to $25. Now let's chat it up with Chris. He does a little bit of everything over at WBAL in Baltimore. Did a great job looking at the Orioles all throughout the regular season. Now he's on a little bit more to the Baltimore Ravens. He does a great job with the news happenings. He also does a nice job moonlighting as a nice hockey analyst as well. You're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at The Big Chi Show. That is CHEE on Chi before show. And Chris, always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Greg, thank you so much for having me. Much appreciated. Baseball, playoff baseball in full swing. I know you are the college basketball aficionado, the top aficionado, but this is rivaling the best time of the sports year along with March Madness. So yeah, man, I'm fired up.
It is going to be a lot of fun to see what we get here in the divisional round of the playoffs. And just what did you make out of those wild card round games? Because it felt like there were a lot of very, very fast leashes on those starting pitchers. And when you just take a look at what we got in terms of wild card round, it was very clear that offense was anything but reigning supreme and had a tough time getting going for darn near any team not named the Dodgers.
Yeah, absolutely. And I felt like I was beating a dead horse quite a bit when I'd jump on your show during the regular season, previewing the postseason and talking about how you needed to load up these relievers because there's going to be games like this. And as you mentioned, we saw it with especially this Tigers Guardians series, as far as some of the relievers that they were rolling out there in that game 3. You had the Guardians with the short lease on Slade Cichon, and then some of their relievers were coming in, but ultimately the Tigers were able to deliver with some timely hits in the 6th inning as they were able to get the victory in advance. And watching the Tigers, I was impressed with how some of their hitters in that game 3 were able to, and even though the Tigers had struggled over the course of the last 6 weeks leading up to the playoffs, they still had guys that were having good hard hit rates and good home run to fly ball percentages like Spencer Torkelson, even Riley Green. I thought, you're going up against the Cleveland Guardians who really didn't have much power, outside of a couple of guys that maybe delivered like a Bo Naylor at the bottom of their lineup. But yeah, even Jose Ramirez wasn't exactly, booming the baseball out of the park. And the Tigers had maybe 1 or 2 more hitters. So that's kind of where, you look at their series upcoming against Seattle. I think Seattle has more of the power hitters if they're going to be going into one of these potentially long, late inning games. But certainly was very impressed with what I saw from Jack Flaherty, even delivering in short start in that game 3, being able to keep his team in it. And you pair him with Skubal and Casey Mize, Tiger, and then plus the back end of that bullpen with Will Vest and Kyle Finnegan. They're going to be giving this Mariners, I think, certainly a series where they're going to be in a position where they may have some trouble with that. Now, the Mariners lineup is just so deep as well, too, when you're talking about the other Naylor, Josh Naylor, who was traded there, Randy Arozarena, certainly Cal Raleigh, the home run leader this year. They're a deep team, so the Tigers and Mariners are going to certainly be an interesting matchup in this divisional round series. And, I think that they might be able to, the winner of that series could potentially meet in the World Series against the winner of the Dodgers-Phillies series, which should be an outstanding one as well with those two loaded lineups.
Oh, and I'm so glad that you mentioned that one, as Chris Cichon, who does such great work over at WBAL in Baltimore, has joined me on the Baseball Betting Show, because I think that that's the primetime series that everyone's going to be watching for, because I think that that might be quite legitimately the World Series, because I just don't see any American League team being able to knock off really the Phillies or the Dodgers. I think they would even have a little bit of a tough time with the Milwaukee Brewers if they make it that far. And when it comes to the Dodgers and the Phillies, the way that I look at them is them being the top two teams remaining in the postseason, and I think we're in for a titanic series between those two.
Yeah, and Christopher Sanchez, I mean, I remember a couple of years ago when he was the fringe fifth starter for this Philadelphia Phillies team and how he has just been really impressive. 6'6" lefty, somebody who is able to mix and match his pitches when it comes to some of the stuff he's got. And this is a team that's going to have to step up, a pitching staff that'll have to step up with no Zach Wheeler, that's who we remembered in times of the past when this Philadelphia team was ascending and making deeper runs. Wheeler was a major part of that. So, yeah, it's Sanchez now the ace of the team. He was there when the Phillies were in the National League Championship Series against the Arizona Diamondbacks in 2023. So this is a pitcher that does have the experience. He had a sub-4 ERA during the regular season this year. So, yeah, Sanchez has been a really strong player for this team. And the Phillies as a whole, offensively, you know that they're going to be able to deliver with a Trey Turner who leads the league in hits, or at least was close to the top there. They've got their power hitters in the middle of their lineup. Is it enough when you're taking on a Dodgers team, though? And, Greg, I targeted incorrectly the Reds' first five in that game 2 when Zach Littell was pitching, and I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm looking pretty good here. Reds got a 2-0 lead. No, you can't allow any sort of traffic against this Dodgers team, because if Mookie Betts gets on, Freddie Freeman can drive him in. Then there's Teoscar Hernandez. Then you've got Max Muncy. Shohei Ohtani seems to always be delivering, and I know he's going to be the opener, or we'll see how long he goes in game 1 tonight. But yeah, this is certainly a juggernaut of a series upcoming. Dodgers, too, when we start seeing them roll out guys like Emmett Sheehan, who's been outstanding, Blake Snell, Yamamoto, who was really strong in that game, too. Not great. I mean, obviously gave up the couple of runs early, but didn't allow major damage there. So, yeah, I think the Dodgers obviously are going to have the edge in this series a little bit, but it's still a team that I think will make the Dodgers sweat a little bit, considering LA has some older guys as well, too, like Kike Hernandez, but he's been certain of delivering. That's no slouch on him or anything like that. How will Kershaw deliver in the postseason as somebody on his swan song last postseason of his career? That should be a lot of fun to watch too. But yeah, it's going to be a late start out there. Presumably, I guess, a primetime matchup that'll be happening here on the Saturday night in Dodgers, and then they'll come back to Philadelphia and play a game 3 on Monday. I know that, yeah, it should be a lot of fun to see this managerial matchup too. Rob Thompson going up against Davey Roberts, who really has gotten over the hump when he was getting criticized, 5 or so years ago about some of his in-game decision-making. Now he's got 2 World Series over the course of the last 5 years. So it's just such a good team, the Dodgers. They're the new New York Yankees. Back in the 90s when the Yankees were buying up all the players in the early 2000s. Now it's the Dodgers, and they develop well, too, so you can't even just say that they're buying up all the players. They're just a great, well-rounded team.
Yep, they certainly are, and that is going to be such a tremendous series. And I do want to get your thoughts a little bit more with regards to what we're going to be seeing in terms of that Tigers versus Seattle Mariners series as well, because that is one that we know is set. It seems as though Tariq Skubal will not be going on short rest in game number 1. The initial opener was the Seattle Mariners more than a $2 favorite in game number 1. But how do you foresee this series playing out with the Tigers team that really flailed in the second half of the season? But I think it begs the question, were they just in cruise control because they thought that they had the division wrapped up and maybe they didn't hit the accelerator in quite enough time? And for the Seattle Mariners, they really have been on a nice run ever since the trade deadline.
Yeah, absolutely. I come back to Jack Flaherty again. This was a guy who I was a little bit concerned about going into the postseason just because he hadn't had, maybe as much success as maybe last year coming down the stretch. But Flaherty, 1 run, 3 hits, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. and a 1.62 ERA in 3 winner-take-all series. So obviously the moment is not too big for Jack Flaherty, who's pitching in this series. And then, when we're talking about a Seattle Mariners team too, like a guy like Julio Rodriguez, I don't even think I mentioned him when we were talking about him earlier. He's somebody that certainly can blast the baseball and have a lot of power as well too. And one of the things that I really liked about what I was watching with this Mariners team in terms of the deadline is that they went for it. It seems like this year they have a mix of older players, but Julio Rodriguez is a 24-year-old guy. Didn't have the strongest. 267 as far as an average during the regular season is pretty good. And, it's in today's game and the 32 home runs that he had this year. So Julio Rodriguez is somebody certainly to worry about. The Tigers, Kerry Carpenter, you're going to need some of these ancillary guys to step up because, again, I don't think they're going to quite match up to the Seattle Bats here. But when we're talking about the bullpen, I think the Tigers measure up to them there. And A.J. Hinch is a World Series winning manager, and he is somebody who was able to not only manage the Tigers into the postseason when it was looking like their chances were fading tremendously down the stretch. He was able to help them and manage them into a series win against the Guardians where they went on the road in that game 3 and were able to get it done. And they had threats earlier on in the game 2, numerous different times. Guys like Dingler who, weren't necessarily delivering at times. But the Tigers got fortunate at certain moments. I know Kafis misplaced a grounder one play in that game 3, and you had Kerry Carpenter able to deliver against Tim Herron. So, mentioning Carpenter, he's sort of a big-time power bet. Veteran players for the Tigers who I think will be big-time X-factors, if you will. That's got to be Javier Baez and Gleyber Torres, 2 guys who certainly have had experience in the postseason. Baez with the Cubs. We know Gleyber Torres with the Yankees there. Wenceel Perez, he's another guy who I think needs to step up too. I know he was in pitch hit duty during the Guardian series. So they're going to need guys to step up. And Wenceel Perez, I believe he was injured for a good portion of the year. So he's maybe just getting his feet kind of back under him a little bit. But do the Tigers have enough offense to keep up with Seattle? That certainly is the question that I have here. As I've mentioned, even guys like J.P. Crawford and Jorge Polanco are veteran players who both logged over 450 at-bats this year, and Polanco can still deliver power. He had over 25 home runs this year, so he's another good player for them. Eugenio Suarez, that's somebody too. We'll see how that one plays out for him in the postseason. I know he had a little bit of a tough stretch at the end of the season, albeit against the Dodgers, but he went 0 for 13 in that last series, 189 average with the Mariners. So he's going to need to pick it up. He's going to need to be a contributor for this team if they're going to want to beat the Tigers. If I had to pick who's going to outright win it, it's still going to be Seattle for me, but Tigers are going to make it interesting because they probably have the better starting pitching. I like the Mariners guys like Logan Gilbert and whatnot. The Tigers, have Tariq Skubal, who was just absolutely lights out against the Guardians. And as you mentioned, maybe not with the short rest, but if there's a guy I'm going to trust on short rest, Tariq Skubal is going to be near the top.
Yep, and with Tariq Skubal, obviously, his dominance is going to be oh so big, so I do think that is going to be so interesting to be able to dive in on as well. And then we are going to be getting the Cubs and the Brewers in that other series in the National League, and I do want to get your thoughts on that series as well. As we're doing this, it's a little bit of TBD starters in terms of game number 1. I have to think that Freddie Peralta goes for the Brewers, a little bit more undecided with regards to the Cubs front, but I do think that is going to be a really fun series. And for the Brewers, they have been so rock solid and consistent this year, but we both know they don't necessarily have one clear strength, so I think that is going to be a fascination too.
Yeah, and what's up with Kyle Tucker? Not necessarily swinging the best of bats. Ian Happ too there. This is a team that Nico Horner, Seiya Suzuki, really looking at them to deliver if the Cubs are going to want to try and advance to the National League Championship Series. We know that the Cubs do have the power. We'll see how if there's any day games that are played in Chicago with the shadows. We know how that can be a bit of a distraction. But Chicago is the deeper team. Matthew Boyd has been such a strong starter for this group. But yeah, I mean, Freddie Peralta is a guy that the Brewers have been able to trust for a number of years now. And the Brewers have just found ways to get it done this season. And I certainly think, though, that they're running into a little bit of a tough matchup with this Cubs team, who, even though Pete Crow Armstrong didn't have himself that great of a second half of the season, he's striking out quite a bit in the postseason. So not necessarily. But yeah, I mean, he can be a power bat if you deliver the wrong pitch to him. Brewers don't do that a whole lot, but I'm certainly thinking that they have the pieces, like a Christian Yelich, somebody certainly who has experience, maybe not necessarily a ton of postseason experience, but somebody who I think can keep the nerves calm for this Brewers team. And should be fun for Craig Counsell managing against his former club there now that he is with the Chicago Cubs. But yeah, I like what the Brewers are going to be able to roll out there with guys like Woodruff after Freddie Peralta, and this should be another good series, but I think ultimately the Cubs will emerge because I think they will be able to get base runners on like Horner and able to drive them in. And I didn't even mention Dansby Swanson, who is another guy who was able to deliver with a couple of hits in that opening series against the Brewers, another pivotal piece for this team defensively as well, too. So yeah, this is going to be a great series, but the Cubs will emerge and end up advancing and playing the Dodgers. I know that's kind of chalk, but that's what we're thinking is going to be happening here as the NL postseason rolls on.
Yep, and it's going to be a lot of fun to be diving in on it all. These 4 series are going to be tremendous. This entire playoffs thus far through the wild card round has been tremendous, and so are you, Chris. You do such a great job over at WBAL in Baltimore, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and so much more. I know that you're very much locked in on our Ravens team dealing with currently being out of the full Lamar Jackson, and you're covering all the news happenings out there. So let the good people at home know it's on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
Oh, Greg, always a pleasure being able to join your program. And yeah, we've got the Ravens coming up tomorrow, hosting the Houston Texans, 1 o'clock game. You can hear the game on WBAL News Radio. If you are out and about anywhere in the country doing errands and you want to lock in and listen to Cooper Rush take on this Houston Texans team. And yeah, we've got Navy football, which is going to be rolling here, taking on Air Force today, and we are broadcasting them. And I'm going to be continuing to bring you the news here in Baltimore on both the sports and the politics front. So you can follow me at The Big Cheese Show on X and social media. And Greg, again, thanks for having me, brother.
Absolutely, and it is always great to be able to get Chris aboard. He does such an amazing job taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball, and every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights. So big thanks, Chris, for joining me on the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming next, it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis for every game on the betting board for this Baseball Saturday as we touch them all.
Breaking down every game, every day in Major League Baseball. This is the Baseball Betting Show. Here is your host, Greg Peterson.
And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for the Baseball Betting Show with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. It is always a pleasure to be able to get on Chris Cichon, who does such great work over at WBAL in Baltimore, taking a look at this great game that we all know and love of baseball. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Chris for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this baseball divisional Saturday as we touch them all.
If a game is listed on the betting board, Greg has a side and a total on it, so it is time to touch them all.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at @G_D1. We're going to go with the 2 American League games first, and then the 2 National League games. That's the way that the Vegas rotation order worked on this one, so sorry about that, but we've got all the time markers listed wherever you're getting this podcast, so we've got you all covered there, and we'll start with 9:31, 9:32 on the card. The Yankees are on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. Kevin Gausman goes for the Jays. Luis Eel goes for the Yankees. Totals between 7.5 and 8 on the 7.5. The over is -120. The under is even on the 8. The under is -120, and the over is even between -118 to -125. That number on Toronto, about +104 to +108, the number on the Yankees, and I'm going to be willing to roll with the Blue Jays. I did set them on the money line at a -135. Kevin Gausman overall for the season, it's not a bad ERA, it's not necessarily a great ERA. That said, he has been very good here down the stretch. Kevin Gausman has put together his best stretch with 2 earned runs or fewer in 12 out of his last 17 starts. Overall for the season, he's applying a .359 ERA with 8.8 strikeouts, 1 home run per 9 innings, not giving out a lot of walks, so he's been solid there. For Luis Seal, he has his issues with regards to giving up a lot of walks, 5.2 walks per 9 innings, only about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 as well, 3.32 ERA, but a 4.63 fielding independent, has been able to keep the ball in the yard, 0.8 home runs allowed per 9 innings, but now faces off against a Blue Jays team that was number 1 in terms of run creation post All-Star break in the American League. They are dealing with the injury to Bo Bichette. That is going to be hurting them a little bit, but so George Springer has been able to give you 30-plus bombs this far this season, even though Vlad Guerrero Jr. was certainly down in terms of the home run power for Guerrero, only 23 home runs, still give you a 380 on base. Alejandro Kirk, don't call his name, has been able to give you about a 350 on base. Just lots of guys in general doing a solid job in terms of move line, and we obviously know that the New York Yankees have a lot of boppers in this lineup, and being able to play indoors is actually going to be able to help out this offense a little bit more rather than playing outdoors, because you've got a team that has, pretty much like 9 guys on the roster that had 19 plus home runs during the regular season. Ben Rice, Chad Chisholm, who they refused to start in game number 1, and then they recognize their shortcomings. Aaron Judge, you go down the list. Cody Bellinger has been great, 29 home runs overall for the season, hitting about a 275. Anthony Volpe actually had a really nice series against the Boston Red Sox, so he and Austin Wells in the regular season both gave you a combined 40 home runs, but both were giving you less than a 280 on base, so you don't necessarily love to see that. They've been mixing and matching a little bit at the third base spot between Ryan McMahon and Ahmed Rosario. That's been a little bit of a sore spot for them, and has really been a sore spot has been the bullpen. For the Yankees bullpen, they do rank in the bottom 7 in the big leagues in terms of ERA since the beginning of the month of July. David Benhart has been solid ever since he joined the team, but Fernando Cruz and Luke Weaver have not been the same since they came out the injury list. Devin Williams posting up an ERA hovering right around about a 5, and it's not necessarily great. They have Mark Leiter Jr. right now on the roster. That's not a place where you want to be either, and for the Toronto Blue Jays, they were in the bottom half of the big leagues in terms of bullpen ERA since the All-Star break, as well as you did see the likes of Yariel Rodriguez, Braden Fisher, along with Brandon Little, posts up north of 350 ERAs ever since the All-Star break, though you've actually been able to have Sir Anthony Dominguez come through a little bit more recently for the team, so that's been relatively encouraging. I do, though, think that Kevin Gausman going to be able to give some good length and get it done for the Toronto Blue Jays, so I did set them at a minus 135. I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line. Did set my total at 7.6 with the shakiness of Eel. I actually would rather take his 7.5 over rather than an 8 under. 933 and 934 on the card. The Seattle Mariners are playing us the Detroit Tigers. Troy Melton is going to be going for Detroit, and George Kirby goes for Seattle. Seattle minus 205 to minus 220 favorites, plus 180 to plus 195. Then I'm on Detroit with a total of 7. The under is between minus 110 to a minus 115. Over is minus 105 to a minus 110, and fully expect Melton to be perhaps like a 2-inning guy here. I recognize that he was getting a few starts earlier during the season, and he is someone that at the minor league level by trade, he was a little bit more of a starter, but that said, they've been utilizing him as a very effective bullpen piece this season. Coming out of the bullpen, he's been able to supply a sub 275 ERA overall for the season, giving up 1.4 home runs per 9 innings. He only gets about 7 strikeouts per 9, but has been highly effective. And then you have to think that you're probably going to get a poo-poo platter of Kadir Montero along Chris Paddock. Both of these guys have been relatively shaky. Both have an ERA above a 4.35 this season. Neither have been able to give you a lot of strikeouts. That said, I do think that this summer has gone a little bit too far, even though George Kirby, he has been much better when he has been at home rather than on the road this season, but you do take a look at that 4.21 ERA. That's a little bit concerning. Goes down by about a full point when he's at home. 1.1 home runs, 2.1 walks per 9 innings, so he's been relatively effective there and comes in relatively good form. 3 runs or fewer allowed in each out of his last 3 starts, and a combined 31 strikeouts in his last 3 starts as well. One of those came against the Angels, who they are just wanting to swing and miss like crazy, so I do discount that a little bit. And this is a Tigers team that overall for the season, they have been a top 11 offense in terms of run creation, giving you about 4.7 runs per game. I know it's been a little bit hit or miss with some of these guys in terms of power, but you've had the likes of Wencio Perez, Gleyber Torres, Javi Baez all be able to provide at least a 245 with yards at average, along Zach McKinstry. Kerry Carpenter during the regular season, 25 plus bombs, hitting at 255. Spencer Torkelson over at 330 on base. He and Riley Green a combined 65 plus bombs during the regular season. And with the Seattle Mariners, they are going to have a little bit of a leg up in terms of bullpen. Do like the top end guys, Andres Munoz, Matt Brash have been very solid, and then Gabe Spire, Edward Bizarro have been able to give you sub 3 ERAs as well. But this can be a little bit of an all or nothing lineup. Big dumper Cal Raleigh, 60 home runs this season, just absolutely magnificent. And you do have guys that do move the line outside of he and Eugenio Suarez. Suarez 45 plus home runs this season, but ever since he got to Seattle, he's been hitting a $189. Josh Naylor, though, he's been hitting more like a 300 with 19 stolen bases as a member of the Seattle Mariners. I'm not sure how he's working that, but you know what? You'd love to see that. Randy Arozarena, Julio Rodriguez both give you above a 324 on base, a combined 59 home runs between those two guys. So I do think that you're going to get a relatively high-scoring game here, and I do think that for the Seattle Mariners, without question, they should be a favorite in this spot, but I do think that the number has went a little bit too far. I did set my number at a plus 162, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on the money line of the Tigers, and I'm in on the over semi total 7.2. 935, 936 on the card. It is the LA Dodgers on the road against the Philadelphia Phillies. Cadiz Safer Sanchez is on the bump for the Phils, and Shohei Ohtani is on the bump for the Dodgers. The Dodgers do find themselves as underdogs anywhere between even money to plus 108, meanwhile between minus 117 to a minus 125. That number on the Phils, and the total is 7. The over is minus 120, and the under is even. Shohei Ohtani has actually been quite good on the mound thus far this season for Mr. Ohtani. You take a look at what he's been able to do, and he's been posting up an ERA that is 287 overall for the season, but a 190 fielding independence. So he's been able to do a nice job keeping the walks down, 1.7 walks, 11.9 strikeouts per 9 innings. Team is only 5-9 when he pitches. He's won 4 1/3 innings or fewer in 11 out of those 14 starts. So that calls into question a few things. Now, this is a better bullpen than what we've seen in the past few months for the LA Dodgers, with adding in their Roki Sasaki. They're going to have Tyler Glasnow coming out of the bullpen as well, so that can lend a little bit more length as well. And additionally, for this LA Dodgers team, you've been able to have some good innings out of the likes of Jack Dreyer and company, and as we know, the Dodgers, a top 5 offense in terms of run creation this year. It has been magnificent what we've been seeing out of Shohei Ohtani at the plate, over 50 plus home runs. He's been able to give you over a 380 on base. Freddie Freeman continues to give you a 370 on base. Andy Paz had 27 plus bombs, hitting a 270 during the regular season, but the big key here is Max Muncy. When he was out of the lineup, the Dodgers had a losing record, and they were scoring about a full run and a half less without him rather than with him. Getting him back in the lineup has been very, very big for them, and then Mookie Betts, post-All-Star break, has been able to 275. Teoscar Hernandez, not really giving you a lot in terms of on-base percentage, but did supply 25 home runs during the regular season. And for the Philadelphia Phillies, this is an offense that ranks number 2 in the big leagues in terms of run creation at home, between 5.4 to 5.5 runs per game when they have been at home this far this season, with Kyle Schwarber giving you all those Schwarber bombs, 56 home runs, over a 350 on base. He has been rock solid. Now, they've been dealing with the injury to Trey Turner. They should have him back for this series, hitting above a 300, swiping a bunch of bags. That is going to be a big boom for them. And then you do have Bryce Harper, 27 home runs. He's the only player outside of Mr. Kyle Schwarber with above 18 home runs on the roster, with Max Kepler giving you those 18 bombs, but only hitting about a 225. But you do have guys like an Alec Boehm moving the line. He's been able to hit above a 285 this season. Brandon Marsh has been able to bet a 280 as well. And for the Phillies, this bullpen looked much better towards the back half of the season. Jose Alvarado turned out to be a bust, and he was ineligible for the playoffs anyway, but they've done a nice job in terms of mixing and matching with Orion Kerkering, Matt Strahm, Tanner Banks, all being able to give you a sub-335 ERA to be able to get to their newly acquired closer in Yohan Duran, who has been so dominant. So I do think that for the Philadelphia Phillies, they get a nice leg up there, along Christopher Sanchez, just being great this season. A 250 ERA, he's getting 9.5 strikeouts to 2 walks per 9 innings. He's given up just 12 home runs in 202 innings. He's been dominant at home. He's been dominant on the road. The Phillies have such a great home field advantage as well. The crowd is going to be out in droves, so I did set them at a minus 132. I'm willing to lay the money line here of the Phils, and I'm going to be in on the over of 7 semi total 7.2, and wrap things up with 937, 938 on the card. It is the Cubs going on the road against the Milwaukee Brewers. As of right now, the Cubs have a TBD starter with Freddie Peralta going for the Brewers, and the Brew Crew, they're between minus 146 to minus 164 on the money line. Between plus 130 to plus 135 is that number on the Cubs, with a total of 7. With the 7, the over is minus 125, and the under is even. And it does appear as though we are going to get Matthew Boyd in this start, and with it being Boyd, I would be willing to lay that number with the Milwaukee Brewers. I'm willing to go up to a minus 148 on the money line with Matthew Boyd. He has overall for the season a 3.21 ERA. He has been shaky though down the stretch, giving up at least 4 runs and now 5 out of his last 8 starts. Did look solid in the start against the San Diego Padres. Went 4 1/3 innings. His pitch count was 58, but now he's going to be going on short rest. Pitched on Tuesday, so you gotta wonder how he's going to be operating there. And he does go up against a Milwaukee Brewers team that is currently number 1 in the National League in terms of run creation post All-Star break, averaging 5.3 runs per game. And for the Brewers, it's not even like they're doing it with a bunch of home run power or anything like that. They had only one guy on the roster register over 20 home runs this season. That'd be Christian Yelich with 29 bombs. Actually, Jackson Trio did get his 21st in the final series of the season. So 2 guys over 20 home runs this season, with Trio hitting about a 270. But it is a whole bunch of guys that they're just simply moving the line, finding a way to be able to get on base with Yelich, who I mentioned before, Bryce Terang, William Contreras, Sal Frelick, even Jake Bauers, all being able to give you at least a 343 on base. You've got Caleb Durbin, who's been able to step up in a nice way with about a 335 on base. He really took off in the second half of the season. Guys like an Andrew Maristerio stepped up, Andrew Vaughn in a Brewers uniform, giving you a 375 on base. And for the Brewers, this has been one of the better bullpens in all baseball down the stretch as well. You've got a lot of mix and match guys. Getting back Trevor McGill is big, as he, Aaron Ashby, Abner Uribe, Jared Koenig, all these guys have been able to give you a sub 290 ERA. And that's big because even though Freddie Peralta has been pretty dominant thus far this season, you look at Peralta, he's getting 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. The fielding dependent, it is a little bit worrisome because he's got that 270 ERA, which lowers to a 177 at home, but 365 fielding dependent, as he does give up home run about 3.5 walks per 9 innings, and goes up against the Cubs lineup that overall for the season has been in the top 10 in the big leagues in terms of run creation. If you look post All-Star break, they were in the bottom half of the league, but I mean, getting back Kyle Tucker I think is very big, as he spent a lot of time in the second half of the season on the injured list. Nico Horner, really ever since the All-Star break, has been hitting above a 315. Seiya Suzuki had a home run in that series against the San Diego Padres. Carson Kelly had a little bit of a rough second half of the season, but came up with a home run as well in that series against the Padres as well. Ian Happ, he's been a little bit hot and cold, but 20 plus bombs out of Heat, Dansby Swanson, guys like this. And then for the Chicago Cubs, the bullpen has been overall relatively solid thus far this season. Your top end guys like Caleb Theobar, Drew Pomeranz, Daniel Palencia, Taylor Rogers, they've all been able to give you sub 325 ERA. Michael Soroka is going to be able to give you a little bit of length as well if needed. I think that they would probably roster Colin Ray in case if they can't get a lot of length out of Matthew Boyd as well, but that's not necessarily a great thing considering that Ray doesn't get a lot of strikeouts and was a former Brewer. So I did set my total at 7.5. I like the over, and with the Brewers, I'm going to be willing to lay up to a minus 148 on that money line, and that'll wrap things up for the Saturday edition of the Baseball Betting Show, now part of the VSiN family of podcasts. If you do like hearing from this fine podcast, Baseball Betting Show, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, there's the naming does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. The other way is via an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I am with you guys every single day on this podcast throughout the postseason. Might take a day or two off if we've got off days during like the World Series, but every day that we've got games, I am going to be with you guys, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much.